simplify the rational expression if possible. Assume that the denominator isn't 0. We have a rational expression here, which is basically just a polynomial divided by another polynomial. And if we can find a common factor in both the numerator and the denominator, we're going to be able to cancel that, right, and just be left with the other parts of the factors. So we want to see if we can factor the numerator and if we can factor the denominator, and if so, if we have a factor that's in common. The key term here is the word factor. There's a common mistake that happens, and that's people, instead of saying if I have a factor in the numerator and the same factor in the denominator, they'll just think of it as, oh, if I have the same thing in the numerator and that same thing in the denominator, I can cancel them. The problem with that sort of words and losing the word factor is that here is something, 2x squared. Here is that same something in the denominator, 2x squared. We cannot cancel those two with each other. They happen to be the same, but they're not factors. This is a term. This is a term. We can't cancel terms. We can cancel factors. So let's go ahead and see if we have any factors that are in common that we can cancel. In the numerator, you'll notice our coefficients 2 and 16 are both even, so we're going to be able to factor a 2 out. You'll also notice we have an x in both of those, so we'll be able to factor an x out. So we'll pull out a 2x. That leaves us an x from this 2x squared part, and it leaves us a negative 8 from the negative 16x part. So there's how our numerator factors. Now let's try and factor the denominator. We have some different tools for trying to factor a polynomial like that. The one I'm going to use is just to guess correctly what the two factors are. I know that I'm going to have a 2x and an x, so that when I take their product I get a 2x squared. There's not many choices for how to come up with a 2, right? To come up with a 16, there's more choices. However, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I use the word cheat lightly, but I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to say, ultimately, I'd like to simplify this thing. The only way I can simplify it is if I have a common factor. So let's assume that I do have a common factor, an x minus 8, right, to match with the x minus 8 I got in the numerator. If this happens to be a negative 8, I know that the thing I write here has to be something that when I multiply by negative 8, I get my positive 16, so it's going to have to be a negative 2, all right? That's if we can do this cancelization. Maybe we can't cancel, right? Maybe this is already in simplified form and there's nothing we can do. So let's go ahead and see if this factorization is right. We already know that 2x times x is 2x squared. We already know that negative 2 times negative 8 is positive 16. So we just have to see, is 2x times negative 8, negative 16, minus 2x, negative 16 minus 2x, that's negative 18. That's our middle term. So this is the correct factoring. And look, lo and behold, we have, as we did over here, a factor that's in common between both the numerator and the denominator. We have this x minus 8 showing up in both spots. So we're able to cancel that out, and we can write a 2x over 2x minus 2. Of course, we're not quite done, because you'll notice we got 2's sitting everywhere. We could have factored this 2x minus 2 a little bit more, right? There's a 2 in both of those terms. So let's factor that out. Take out the 2. Oops, not x minus 2. I took a 2 out, so x minus 1. Right, and now we once again have a common factor. Right, there's a multiple of 2 in both places, a factor of 2. So we can go ahead, cancel those 2's, and be left with an x in the numerator and an x minus 1 in the denominator. And I want to mention just one more time, this is really is a common mistake, so I want to mention it yet again. Here is something in the numerator and that same something in the denominator. In the numerator, you could think of this as a factor, right? It's this times 1, really. There's not much in the numerator. But in the denominator, this is definitely a term, not a factor, right? Factor is a piece of a product. This is a piece of a sum, so it's a piece of a term. So we're not able to cancel those x's, even though they're the same thing in the numerator and the same thing in the denominator. I need to not just have the same things. I need to have the same factors in the numerator and the same factor in the denominator. So this is as good as I can get. The numerator doesn't factor anymore, the denominator doesn't factor anymore, and no more common factors to cancel. So we're done.